Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is our fourth US-India conference sponsored by AIMA. It has been a great event. This is a private event where we invitation only. And as I look over the audience, as people, I know today we had a parking issue. We have a football game today, and the parking lot right here is closed, so people are looking for parking. But we need to start on time because our Chancellor has a hard stop at 9:30, but we will begin. As I look over the audience, many of the private invitations that I put out come from all over the world. We have people from Europe, China. There's a huge delegation of China that was attending here for this event, even though it's US-India. They said, we want to be included too. We have several executives from China who flew in to be a part of this, many from Europe, and other parts of the United States, and of course, many from India as well, especially our keynote speakers. It's becoming one of our flagship programs at UC Berkeley, and we're very proud of this. It's a place where, as you spend the rest of the day here, as you mingle, I think great ideas will be birthed. And leveraging those ties. Without any further ado, I would like to invite our Chancellor, Kirloskar, to come and open the session.
Distinguished guests, executives, and faculty, welcome to UC Berkeley's US-India Conference, sponsored by All India Management Association. We've been privileged to host this event for the past 4 years with increasing participation by senior executives from India, Silicon Valley, and beyond. Our theme this year, Reimagining US-India Ties, Investing in Mutual Strengths, is a great collaborative platform to accelerate innovation, goodwill, and economic growth between our two countries. This partnership will benefit not just our two nations, but the rest of the world. I've recently learned that many of our distinguished faculty at the Haas School of Business have been long involved in initiatives in India focused on translational research. Solving challenges to promote the well-being of people in growth markets calls for engagement and collaboration through meetings like the US-India Conference. UC Berkeley is very engaged with global communities to address diverse social and economic problems. This has been part of our DNA from the very start, formulating technological and business solutions and advancing this knowledge to solve global problems is the mission of our university. As the demand for well-educated talent and innovative research escalates, India offers new avenues to build on our mutual strengths. This is a perfect time to bolster relations through mentorship programs, new partnerships, and educational collaboration. Involving students and faculty on relevant research projects supported by the Indian government and prominent educational institutions in the subcontinent is essential. This should help strengthen the relationship between our university and India for years to come. To achieve this objective of investing in mutual strengths, a new center has been established at UC Berkeley. It's called the Center for Growth Markets. The Smart Village movement that started here at Berkeley is now an initiative of the center. Professor Ganesh Iyer will serve as the faculty director, and Professor Solomon Darwin will take on an additional responsibility as the executive director. We're proud to be part of the Smart Village movement. This morning, UC Berkeley has entered into a 5-year MOU with the government of Meghalaya to promote the creation of smart villages in India. This is all about investing in our mutual strengths to empower rural people of India. The research mission of the Center for Growth Markets is to create sustainable and scalable business models to help the underserved people in India who do not have access to resources, tools, and markets. The research and learnings generated by the Center for Growth Markets could bring tangible benefits to the neglected, marginalized majority of the world's population who lack access to global markets. Through events like the US-India Conference, We provide an opportunity for our corporate friends within our ecosystem to learn about opportunities in the fastest growing economy. I wish AIMA and the Haas School of Business success in many joint projects and programs in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, Carol, thank you so much for that talk. We just want to have one picture with you with the delegation before you leave on the stage, please. Thank you so much. If you look at the agenda, our next speaker is supposed to be Ann Harrison, Bank of America Dean and Professor at the Haas School of Business. And she was called away yesterday to an out-of-town meeting, so she's not able to be here. She apologizes, but she's a strong believer in what we are doing at this conference. And she's behind this Center for Growth Markets and very inspirational. So she has done extensive work in India with the World Bank, and that's her specialty, and she's very connected to India. And she really regrets that she's not able to be here today. And I wish she was, and we hopefully will make sure that she's here next year. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome Sanjay Kirloskar, President of AIMA and Chairman and Managing Director of Kirloskar Brothers, a very large company in India. And here he is, special address. Sanjay?
Sanjay has asked me to tell you all that I'm not him. He looks a little different. But Solomon conveniently forgot that I had to say a few words to all of you. So I've decided to take the mic from him and request him to please look at the session structure before. It gives me great pleasure to be back again in this very, very beautiful campus, and I'm delighted to welcome a very special audience and a very special panel this morning. Honorable Chief Minister, it's great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. You represent one of the most beautiful regions in India with its rolling hills and sun-drenched forests. This poetry because I visited Meghalaya for the first time in May and fell in love with it. So I couldn't resist saying a few words about how beautiful the state is. It's a state on the move, and under your leadership, Meghalaya is using technology to get the best out of its natural gifts. A Wharton graduate and also an MBA from the Imperial College, the Chief Minister is out to change the business face of Meghalaya. Welcome, Mr. Chief Minister. Ambassador Sanjay Panda, an old friend from our days of the Cannes Film Festival. We had a lot of fun then. It's a privilege to have you with us, Sanjay. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been a friend and guide to AIMA. And since you took over as the CG, life has been very smooth for us. So thank you for being here. Always good to have friends in key places. But thank you for being a partner and being so involved with this conference. I hope we'll have the Consulate General support going forward in the years to come. Mr. Munjal, Mr. Kirloskar, great having you with us. I know it's been difficult for you to spare time, and you've all had very tight schedules, but thank you for taking out time for this conference every year and helping us make it happen. A big thank you to Munis Faruqui and his amazing team at the Institute for South Asia Studies, Punita, Sanchita, and all the others. I don't think we would have managed to handle all the logistics without them. So thank you, Munis. And Solomon, our special friend in Berkeley. Thank you for your support, involvement, and wisdom. Of course, now we are used to Solomon being the absent-minded professor he is, and love him for it. But seriously, none of this would have been possible without you. So thank you very much, Solomon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 4th edition of the US-India Conference, and each year it gets bigger and better. We've had close to 500 confirmations for this conference. Last year we had a little over 300, so I'm sure many more people will join us through the day, but it just shows how the conference has picked up and its popularity. In fact, we had to stop registration a week back. Over the past 3 years, we've had the privilege of having many important leaders at the conference and have had purposeful dialogues about furthering economic and strategic cooperation between our two countries. In this edition of the conference, we aim to reopen and deepen the discussions and explore how the US can be a stakeholder in India's transformation and how we can invest in our mutual strengths. We are witnessing an emergence of a new trade and geopolitical order, and we need to cooperate and get the best deals for our respective nations. The old global agreements and institutions need to be updated in accordance with the new economic, technological, and security realities, and India and America can lead this transformation. It is critical to upgrade global institutions like the UN and WTO to enjoy peace, order, and economic growth in the 21st century. Data makes today's world go round. India and America have enjoyed a long and mutually beneficial relationship in the IT sector, and Indians have made a huge contribution to digital revolution in the Silicon Valley. All of you in this audience are a testament to this statement of mine. Now we need to strengthen that bond further and enable greater flow of talent and innovation between the two countries. India is aiming, as you probably have all heard the Prime Minister say this, is aiming to double its GDP to $5 trillion within 5 years. And the US companies can have a piece of India's explosive growth. To achieve its ambitious economic growth target, India will need all the investment, know-how, and global connections it can get, and that means huge opportunities for foreign investment in every sector. There are many areas where India and the US can cooperate for mutual gain. Moreover, a strong relationship between US and India is good for Asia and the world. We are looking forward to a great exchange of perspectives and ideas at the conference today, and I'm sure and I hope you'll all enjoy it. We are fortunate to have prominent thought leaders from both the countries with us today, and I'm very grateful to all our speakers who have joined us today. AIMA is privileged to have an excellent partner in the Haas School of Business, UC Berkeley, and the Institute of Asian Studies, along with the Consulate General of India in San Francisco, and this conference is an outcome of our joint efforts. AIMA is also grateful to the US-India Strategic Partnership Initiative, the Bay Area Council, TIE Silicon Valley, for the support in organizing the event today. I take this opportunity to also thank our sponsors, our key sponsor, Kirloskar Brother Limited, and our lunch co-host, Trivium Corporation and Touch a Life Foundation for making it possible to organize the conference at this large scale. Thank you, Mr. Kirloskar. Thank you, Sharad. Thank you, Sai. We really appreciate your support. With these words, I look forward to a great day ahead. And once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rekha. I'm sorry that I skipped you. You're such an integral part, wonderful lady. I believe in women leadership, and she is a great woman, and I've been working with her, learned a lot from her as to how she really works with governments and institutions and UC Berkeley, and it's a real pleasure. Great strengths she has and brings to this conference. Thank you so much. Well, without any further ado, I already introduced Sanjay to you.
This is my second year at UCB, and it's really nice to be on this beautiful campus. We're happy that the Honorable Chief Minister is here with us. I think you're the youngest Chief Minister that we have, and two of you, okay. Yeah, so both in the Northeast, where the sun rises. And I think we're really looking forward to the younger generation now that I'm also part of the senior crowd, to take this country forward back to the glory it had in the past. Mr. Panda, we're very happy that you're here, and thank you for all the help that you have given us. Actually, it's very wonderful coincidence that we're doing this at the same time as the Howdy Modi event in Houston. And I normally don't watch political events, but it was really nice to see the President of the US come for a political rally held over here. And I think that is basically what shows how strong the bond between these two political leaders as well as the two countries has become. There are about 3 million Indians or people of Indian descent, I guess they are people of Indian descent, who are here. And they are an important bridge for building the relationship between our two nations. So what I liked was not only the fact that the president of the US was there, but also there's so many senators and congressmen also present over there. And some of them were of Indian descent as well. I think there's one from California, one or two. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, Raja Krishnamurthy, I think, from Chicago. Yeah. So I think our two countries share similar values, right? Individual freedom, democratic governance, and global openness in a disrupted world. And I think we need to cooperate even more as we go forward. Our relationship is not just important for mutual benefit, but also for global prosperity and stability. I think the economic as well as the strategic interests of both the countries have converged, and India's relationship and engagement with the US has increased in every field. So I think for us also it's of paramount importance. We used to buy weapons from the Soviet Union earlier. Now I believe the US is our biggest supplier of defense equipment, and the very serious joint military exercises that are taking place. Both of us are victims of terrorism, and cooperation in counterterrorism measures has grown, especially in the digital domain. On the trade front, I guess there have been a few hiccups lately, but there's nothing that has happened that can upset the strategic relationship. The bilateral trade continues to grow. American companies like Google, Amazon, Walmart, Uber, as well as new startups are investing in India. Trade balance between the countries is improving from the American point of view. I think Donald Trump, who calls us the king of tariffs, should be happy. The trade deficit with India has gone down to 17 billion from the 24 billion that it was earlier. I think, as Rekha mentioned, our Prime Minister wants to double the size of the Indian economy from about 2.8 trillion to 5 trillion, and he wants to do that in the next 5 years. On the other side, I think in the ease of doing business, the rankings that are put up by the World Bank, India is showing a great improvement. We were about 141 when Mr. Modi took over. We are now around 75. And I think with the actions that are being taken by not only the national government, but also the state governments, I'm sure that this ranking will improve. So I think this is the right time for American companies to come and invest in India and get a piece of the action that is there. So there's plenty of room for growth, for more cooperation, and I think both the nations can grow together and strengthen each other as we move forward in this new world. Thank you.
Well, our next speaker is Sunil Kant Munjal, another great man. He's, his comes from a great company and enterprise, and I think that family of the Munjals, they are the largest manufacturer of two-wheelers in the world. And I used to think it was China, and I was mistaken. And they have a university. They're into so many verticals that they're having a huge impact in India. He's been a great friend. And he was the former president of AIMA, and he is here today. And he has such a galvanizing force of bringing in executives to the table for dialogue. And I really appreciate him and his strengths. And thank you, sir, for being here and gracing this occasion.
I'm not going to thank each one of you because it is, I think, most appropriate that India and US take a hard look or re-look at the relationship. As both Rekha and Sanjay already said, there are no two countries in the world which are more alike than India and the US in the fundamental value system and philosophy that we both follow. But historically, and for political reasons, we've kind of pulled apart over the last many decades. Increasingly, the realization, I think, is pretty clear that it makes eminent sense for both of us to be doing much more together than we have been. And whether it's in the area of technology, medicine, education, just travel across the two countries, trade, investments. India at this point in time is quite uniquely positioned. The Chancellor already mentioned that India is the fastest growing large economy in the world, but that alone is not enough. It's that India's biggest challenges and problems have also become our biggest opportunities. When people used to talk about India, they used to talk about lack of physical infrastructure, too much red tape and corruption. And if I look at each one of them, they present themselves as outstanding opportunities because the mission that India is on at this moment is to stand up and be counted. Indian industry and business wants to compete globally. For many, many decades, we've kind of put walls around ourselves. And since the early 90s, when we opened up, there was some resistance from within India. Actually, most of it came from industry itself, to saying we are not ready. There are these large, giant multinational companies which will come in and take over our markets. They have bigger brands, they have more resources, they have reserves that they can use. But the interesting thing is, some of the very companies that had launched this protest are now global leaders in their chosen fields. So we have been big beneficiaries of opening up and of globalization. So in fact, it's almost funny if you look around at what's going on in the world right now. The very champions of the free markets are now looking to put up walls, some even physically. And so I think it is both important and useful to introspect a little bit about this right now. Because in the US, what India and more importantly, what Indians have done is very significant. Going across any part of the society and the economy here, lawyers, doctors, accountants, scientists, researchers, academics, artists, literally across the board, you'll always find a few Indians at the top of the heap, CEOs amongst large corporations. How do we build this into much more sustainable and a relationship that benefits both sides? I think that's the question that's staring us in the face right now. And the opportunity is quite real, because if you look at infrastructure, India has now launched some of the largest projects ever conceived in the world. They're bigger than what China has done in recent times, and because China is the real example of how to scale, how to use public funding for public resources and infrastructure, and using digital technologies for providing government services, addressing India's biggest challenge. So while at the top end, India does exceedingly well, we were able to launch the moon mission that we launched, the Mars mission that we launched, by the way, was at three-fourths the price of the making of the movie Gravity. And the many missions that we've launched are a fraction of what it costs in the rest of the world. So we are now able to launch satellites for at least 32 different countries. And there are many more such programs which are ongoing. On the top end, we're doing exceedingly well. Our healthcare institutions, our technology institutions are completely world-class. But it's when you take a few steps down that the challenge begins. Poverty continues to be our biggest challenge. And the good thing now is that there's a clear understanding amongst the complete political spectrum in India. The only way to address this big challenge of extreme disparity and poverty is development and growth. You will hear a little bit later from an outstanding individual who's the chief minister of one of our states, and hear about the kind of work going on across the country. We've had every party across the political spectrum in government in India, and I'm talking now about central government. As you know, we have a federal structure. Because we're a very diverse country, we do end up with large coalitions in government, and parties from the extreme left, extreme right, and every color in between have been in government. But the broad direction of development and the economy have not changed. So there is a buy-in across the entire political spectrum that this is the answer, which is what opens up the great set of opportunities for India. India has some cost advantages, it has a demographic advantage, and it has an advantage of aspiration and reach. We do want to get to where we want to. And that opens up a whole host of other opportunities. So this conference for us is very valuable in the sense of exchanging ideas and inviting brilliant minds from both sides of the spectrum to come in and sit down here and talk to us. Each year we've had experts across different sectors of the economy and industry, and we've also had some outstanding thinkers, as we do today. Just after this, we have a session with Paul Sappho to hear of somebody who looks at the future much more than most of us do, to realize in many ways that the future is here right now. So Solomon, thank you very much to you and to the entire team at UC Berkeley, the Haas Business School, the South Asia department, and to Ambassador Panda and his team for their support. This is truly a place where we come and connect, and hopefully many of these connections later on result in much more enduring relationships. So thank you all very much.
Our next speaker is Ambassador Sanjay Panda, Consul General of India, San Francisco, and he's a very collaborative ambassador. And the first week he was here, he took charge of this office. He came to Berkeley and met with me and some of the faculty, and wanted to work with us. And he was very engaged with us since then, and loves some of the initiatives that we have undertaken here at Berkeley. And so with that note, I'd like to invite him to come and deliver his keynote.
Good morning, friends. In fact, honored and delighted to be here. And in particular, warm welcome to our Honorable Chief Minister from Meghalaya. In fact, this is one of the dynamic chief ministers that you'll see, and it's a matter of pride that he's with us this morning. In fact, we also have a delegation from Arunachal Pradesh, also visiting us and present here this morning. I'm grateful to AIMA and the Haas School of Business, UC Berkeley, for putting together this 4th edition, and we are delighted to collaborate with them. And this is actually an opportune moment, and this is a timely debate, especially when it coincides with Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US. And in fact, minutes before he delivered his address to the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. And while coming to Berkeley, I was listening to his 17 minutes inspiring address. And also, I would like to mention that a reference was made to the Howdy Modi event in Houston. And this was something, in fact, I spent in Houston trying to put that event together that was entrusted to me. And it was such an event. I'd never experienced something like this. In fact, we are having that jitters when we're looking at that stadium. And they said, what happens if the people don't turn up? And so just the evening before this, I thought I'll share with you, though a little irrelevant for the conference. There were about 10,000 people in the waiting list because the registrations had stopped in the first 3 weeks. Then we sent out, in the last evening, we sent out to the people, look, we hope that some seats may be available, so if you want, come in the morning. And lo and behold, there were 8,000 people who turned up in the morning, and we could accommodate only 800. So that was, and they came at 8 o'clock in the morning, and in fact much before that. So this was the kind of response which came from the community. And of course, President Trump's presence, and that was for all of us to see. The chemistry was very much at work. And I particularly liked the statement which Prime Minister Modi made. By the way, it was, you might call it a political rally. That's how it happened to be. It was a community event, actually. It was a community reception. Political rally, what would the Consul General be doing? So, okay. So this is what I liked. I thought I'll share with you. When the Prime Minister said, President Trump, when I visited the United States for the first time after becoming the Prime Minister, you introduced me to your family. And today, I introduce you to my family. So 55,000 Indians there in members of Indian diaspora was introduced by Prime Minister Modi as his family. So that was a very touching moment. Anyway, friends, I can tell you about references have been made by India-US relations. This is a defining moment in history. In fact, this is the time when our two countries are on the threshold of a qualitative transformation in the bilateral engagement. And there is a recognition that we are natural partners, and there's a recognition that we have a strategic convergence, and of course, it's much cliched, but it has to be mentioned that the democratic values is what gets us together, oldest and largest democracy. This is very important, that is why our worldview is similar. But if you look at the US-India relationship, it has been a roller coaster ride over the years. I mean, it started off with the Cold War era, and then, of course, India had this socialist orientation. Of course, that was the time, I mean, in hindsight, we might comment anything, but when the Prime Minister of the day talk about the public sector as the commanding heights of economy, probably the private sector was not geared as much to take on that responsibility, but still that lost space. Again, we say that with the benefit of hindsight, but that lost space actually cost us a little bit. And of course, in beginning 1990s, in 91, there was a little light at the end of the tunnel with the liberalization. And of course, that is when US-India relations looked up, only again go down in 1998 when we went in for the nuclear test. But then, what not many people talk about, what actually not spoken but work behind the scenes is the development in, the 9/11, when the scenario entirely changed after 9/11, when it was the war on terror, which was launched by the US, and that took center stage. And that is when there was a feeling that India and the US have to collaborate and be together. In 2004, we had this strategic partnership, and of course what culminated in the 123 agreement, civil nuclear cooperation, and that changed the way people looked at this relationship. Of course, we are in the best phase of the relationship now, but there were occasional hiccups, I think you mentioned, in the trade side. But well, before I come to that, I also would like to say, what is this primary reason that India and US have got together? I mean, I mentioned about end of Cold War, war on terror, but actually there was also this in the geostrategic considerations, and of course references in academic circles have been made about the growing balancing the growing Chinese footprint. The rise of China has had a very important effect on the world, but that doesn't mean that there is not space for every country to accommodate and rise at the same time. But at the same time, US and India, there was a concern also for securing the oceanic space, and that is the maritime security concerns were very much there. And why I mention this, because most of the global trade and commerce is actually conducted through the ocean. So far as India is concerned, 74% of our total trade in terms of value and 95% in terms of volume are conducted through the sea. So it is this recognition of the salience of freedom of navigation and overflight, which is what actually got India and US looking at maritime security in one similar way. And of course, this strong convergence of our interests is across a broad spectrum. It's trade, commerce, be it LNG, defense and security, many aspects, defense co-production, civil aviation, to name a few. I mean, there are so much that we can talk about. The trade, bilateral trade, 142 billion, and in 2018 it grew from 126 billion US to 2017. So that's a huge growth, but at the same time, also I think Sanjay mentioned about the deficit and the hiccups. It is actually, this is a misnomer because the deficit of 24 billion US dollars, both in goods and services, has already been wiped out in 2 years and has come down to 17 billion. And now, since we are expanding so fast that when there is 39 billion of civil aviation, I mean the aircraft orders with the Boeing, if that order goes through, it will be a reverse deficit now, so the narrative would change. And moreover, now the energy exports have commenced, and 5.5 billion worth of energy exports are expected from the US, and of course the poultry has also opened up. So we are looking at new areas. So when this trade hiccup that was referred to, and the GSP was withdrawn from India, so there was a lot of eyebrows were raised, and then of course there was work to set this, correct this scenario. But when it didn't happen in June, India came up with this retaliatory tariff, which on 28 items, and it so happened that it affected mostly the California and Washington states. I mean, where many of the people of Indian origin, our farmers from Indian diaspora, who were affected when it's walnut and almonds and apples of Washington, what is getting affected. But I wanted to tell you, as we speak, the Commerce Minister of India and USTR, they're having their discussions. They have already met in Washington and again in New York, and the negotiations are going on. It's work in progress. We have achieved some major progress, and we hope that this issue will be resolved very soon. Well, friends, I did mention about how we have a strategic convergence, but I would like to just quickly mention what Prime Minister Modi said in the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore in 2018 June. He said, for thousands of years, Indians have turned to the East, not just to see the sunrise, but also to pray for its light to spread over the entire world. Humankind now looks to the rising East with the hope to see the promise that this 21st century beholds for the whole world, because the destiny of the world will be deeply influenced by the course of developments in the Indo-Pacific region. Well, friends, when we look to the East from India, we also see the United States. Well, it's not stretching it too far, because it's a very important pillar of our strategic partnership is our shared vision for an open, stable, secure, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. You see, the very fact that the United States renamed its PACOM, its Pacific Command, as Indo-Pacific Command, speaks volumes of the salience that it attaches to its partnership with India and the significance of Indian Ocean stretching over to the Indo-Pacific and being part of the larger narrative. I just very quickly also wanted to mention a couple of points before I conclude. A major link between India and the United States is the Indian diaspora. It's actually, let me correct it, it's actually not 3 million, it's actually become over 4 million, it's 4.2 million to be precise. So they are spread all over, and that's the major link between India and the US. And if US becomes part of the India's growth story, this segment has a very, very important role to play, and which they are playing. The other thing which I wanted to mention was the Indian students. We have 200,000 Indian students in the United States, and they contribute 7.5 billion to the US economy, 7.5 billion US dollars. So when we're talking about trade deficit, actually, I feel this should also be calculated in it. So, and how the role of the government has changed. Technology and innovation, Silicon Valley Connect is very important, this open and dynamic area which thrives on merit and results, and also has this passion for innovation and technology, and also a healthy disregard for the governmental interference is something which attracted me when I came here, when I said no to my second ambassadorial assignment and wanted to come to the Silicon Valley. This was always in my mind. I thought at the fag end of my career, I should change from diplomacy to techplomacy. Bring technology and innovation to match India's growth and development priorities. So this is what we have been doing. My team, I've been talking to them that this should be our primary focus. And of course, with so many venture capitalists, incubators, accelerators, mentors, I feel that there's a major scope, and especially when you see that 10 unicorns are there in the Indian startups, I mean, that has also suddenly, revived an interest in India. Finally, the last point which I wanted to make, because the Honorable Chief Minister is here, our states have become extremely important. And that is a certain dynamism which actually the Prime Minister has ensured in empowering the federating units. And some of our large states have country-sized populations, but some of the smaller states have manageable, not only manageable populations, the ideas, whatever they have, they can implement. And empowering the states has given them the direct and the scope for directly interacting with the international partners and working on the development. And in fact, our states are also now ranked on the basis of the business that, the business-friendly states, the ease of doing business, and various other parameters. So it's something which is the future. So I feel that the major connect with the US will be that with the states, and it's part of our competitive federalism that we talk about, which is healthy. And of course, the fact that for this conference, we have the Honorable Chief Minister leading the Meghalaya state delegation, and Arunachal Pradesh is here as well. This speaks volumes of our shifting focus onto the states. So friends, as India navigates an economic path of high growth amid pain in global trade and value chains, and while facing the global headwinds of uncertain demand, we look to the US not just as a partner, but as a friend. And as friends do, we must speak frankly with each other. Listen to each other's concerns. Flood the available channels with ideas, capital, and talent to achieve scale and value. We in the government stand ready to facilitate this partnership and troubleshoot issues that may arise from time to time. I wish you all the best for deliberations this day, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Panda, for wonderful remarks. Good summary of what is happening between our countries. Thank you so much. It's a real honor for me to introduce our next speaker. It's somewhat I'm very passionate about the cause that we both stand here to move it forward. Last year, another Chief Minister, Pema Khandu, addressed you through teleconference, and I said, he's the youngest, and I found another younger. So Berkeley is so blessed to work with two young Chief Ministers. We're looking for a new India. India is changing, and these are the future leaders that will lead. And it's coming from Northeast, which is phenomenal. And I began to appreciate the Northeast after visiting there and working with these chief ministers. We started working with Prime Minister I'm sorry, Chief Minister Naidu of Andhra, very technologically keen on developing his state, and now we're working with two, and we are so honored that he's here today to be with us. And as our Chancellor said, we signed an MOU today, which is another between our two institutions, or the government and UC Berkeley, and we look forward to a very bright future and relationship. With that, it's a great honor for me to introduce to you our Chief Minister.
Professor Solomon, a dear friend of mine, and all the dignitaries who are present on the dais, and all the friends from different organizations and different walks of life who have come here for today's very important program. I don't want to, of course, talk too much. I think there's a lot more to listen and learn than really give a long political speech. But of course, I'm truly excited to be here. I must start off by telling you that Professor Solomon Darwin has been a real inspiration for me. And the last 4 days, he did not sit, except he's sitting now. And he did not allow me to sit either. So it's been almost a 12-hour program every day. And we do that back home in Shillong. But then for somebody to get a politician to sit for 12 hours and be in a program for 12 hours for 4 days in itself is an achievement. So I must congratulate Professor Darwin for inspiring me and motivating me to sit through all those deliberations. And I didn't, it was really, as I said, I did it, of course, he forced me sometimes, but apart from that, it was something I believed in, so I was there. Friends, I think a lot of the speakers have mentioned about the fact that our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is in US, as you know, and I think this must be one of his longest trips in the US. And the fact that a chief minister of one of the states also is here, and at the same time and for a similar long period, I think wasn't planned. I can assure you, it just happened. But it really reflects that we are really reimagining things. So at one point, we used to have the prime minister coming in and discussing about what is there at the macro level, but the movement that is taking place now, when chief ministers are coming and discussing, is really a movement at the micro level. And I think it's so important to notice and to see that these kind of steps reflect the seriousness that India has. So I think it's great. Prime Minister has been very, very clear that we must move towards a $5 trillion economy, what we call Team India, which is made up of Prime Minister and a few cabinet ministers and all the chief ministers of the states. We had a meeting about 3 months back, and we all have worked out on this issue of ensuring that if India has to double its GDP, then each state also must double its GDP. And that is a kind of a movement that we have started, and we are all working under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, and therefore it's something that we are all looking forward to. Having said that, I was sitting and talking to some of my officials who have come with me. And we were discussing that, I look on the right and this guy says that, well, I just started a $1 billion company. And I look towards the left and there's another guy who says we did a $5 billion, takeover. And I look back and there's another $1 billion guy. And in front also there's a $1 billion guy. And my officer said, sir, do we fit in here? They're all billionaires. We are not billionaires, we means as individuals. So I told them that we are not billionaires in terms of dollars, but we do bring billion smiles from India. We have 1.2 billion smiles. So I think we do fit in. We do fit in. And we fit in because, as I said, we have billion smiles. And I think what I really appreciate about what's happening now is that, we're looking at as I said, micro aspects also. I'm a very strong believer when it comes to partnerships. And I've always shared this with even people who come and invest in my state. I said, please don't come in as a businessman. Don't come in because you want to, do business out here. I would want you to come to partner with Meghalaya. And the reason why I would want you to partner with us is because partners are there for each other no matter what. And I think that is a kind of mindset that one should move forward with. And today when I'm seeing the Indo-US relationship growing, today at $87 billion, we are looking at things happening at a partnership, true partnership level. Now, Professor and I are working on something which we call smart villages. And, it's a completely different, as I said, it's really reimagining things now. We always sit here, we talk about how much investment, how much of sales, how much of trade. Yes, these are very important numbers. But somewhere we need to connect. Somewhere there has to be a human-to-human contact. And there must be something that goes beyond just simply numbers. And I think that is when the true partnership comes in. This movement of Smart Village is connecting with the people. You're talking of making a difference in a person's life at the grassroots level with the use of technology, with basic technological interventions. And absolutely, there is business in that also. But while we do that, we are making a positive difference in people's lives. And I think it's an appropriate time for us to, or I should say, appropriate moment in a day when we are signing this MOU with Berkeley to take up 100 villages in my state of Meghalaya and move towards making them smarter. And by that, we not only mean in terms of the business aspect of focusing on entrepreneurship, which is something, again, I believe in because I myself, I'm an entrepreneur. And, so there's something, apart from that, I think the aspect of technology playing an important role in ensuring that health services improve. Technology in terms of ensuring that education improves. I think what our Consul General had just mentioned, that we need to be really transparent with each other also. It's not always the good things. There are a lot of challenges and we must bring those challenges forward and say, yes, we do have difficulties in this. Do you have a solution to this? Yesterday I was sitting with some of the students. I had a great, I think one of the most exciting discussions I've had in a very, very long time with about 70, 80 students. And they are taking up projects and challenges in my state in Meghalaya. And they're going to actually give me solutions on how to build up, for example, my turmeric industry, which are something that I really want to focus on, or because turmeric is something that we are really rich in. We have got a variety which is something that has got a very high curcumin value, about almost 8 to 12%, which is not there in others. So these kind of projects we have given to the students out here, hoping to get, a lot of positive response from them and, innovative ideas from them. We have a lot of challenges in terms of the horticulture. We have a lot of challenge in terms of, in terms of the ecotourism we want to develop. So I had a very, very interesting discussion with the students yesterday. And we've decided to really take this relationship with Berkeley and obviously with the US as a whole, really to a new level, where, as I said, we want to partner with you, not just in terms of what investments and what business we do, but really to have human-to-human connect. And yesterday, while doing this presentation, we showed the team out here in Berkeley what we have been doing, how we have been using our own technology at a very small level to actually make a difference in the lives of and the health of mothers, pregnant mothers, and infants and children below the age of 5, which is a huge challenge in India. And with the use of technology, and by ensuring that we had data-driven governance and basic interventions, we were able to change and reduce the maternal mortality rate by a huge number by ensuring that the institutional deliveries that were there in my state went up by almost 100%. So from a 40%, we managed to jump it to 80%. And in some districts, we have crossed 90%. So therefore, these technologies that we have implemented, I showed it to Professor Darwin, and he said, why can't this be implemented in other parts of the world? It's such a basic technology. So it's not just what we will learn from you, but I think it's what we can learn from each other. So we've been doing this. So I started this program much before I met Professor Darwin. So I was telling a group just a few days back when I'd come here that Professor was, Professor and I met about 4 or 5 months back. And then when we met, we clicked because, we are doing the same thing. I told him that I really want to focus on rural areas. I want to bring them up. I want to build up entrepreneurship. I want to improve the health condition. And I told him it's great. And I was joking with him saying that, I'm doing the same thing. It's just that you have a fancy name for it and I don't, So you call it smart villages and that's exactly what I'm trying to do, but I'm not so smart to put that smart village tag to it. So, but that's how it is. And that is why we clicked. And friends, that's why I'm here today. I am so happy that I got an opportunity to be here with AIMA's program of Indo-US conference. It was not part of my program in the beginning, but when I was told that this program is taking place, so I was very, very honored and happy to be part of this program. So I must congratulate AIMA for organizing this event. We have so many friends out here. It's really good to also notice and mention that we have our friends from China who are here. And yesterday, in fact, we had a beautiful dinner together and we discussed so many things. And really, sometimes I do wonder, that if actually Indo-China, US actually relationship, if it goes to the level that we would want it to go, and maybe the differences could be changed. I know it's much easier said than done. But I was just thinking that if that was the case, where we would have an Indo-China-US program conference like this, I mean, can you imagine the kind of possibilities there are? And that's why I'm so happy to see our Chinese delegation out here. We are very close to them, by the way. My state is just about 500-600 kilometers away from China. So yeah, it's good to see them out here. Good to see all of you. And really, I wish this conference a great success. It's the 4th time you're having it. I'm sure that in the coming years, more successful conferences will take place. And more importantly, the relationship between India and US will keep growing. And as I said, it's not just about the business. It's really about human-to-human connect. And we ensure that the partnership gets stronger. So with these few words, I once again wish the conference the very best. And thank you very much. And God bless you all.
Thank you, Chief Minister Conrad. It's so inspiring to hear from you and your vision for your state. All those beautiful pictures that you have been seeing in the background, aren't they spectacular? Yes, Meghalaya is called the Scotland of India. And the other state that we're working in, which is Arunachal, is called the Switzerland of India. Beautiful places there. And the people are also very, very beautiful. And so we're appreciating that. Thank you so much for bringing your state with us. Yesterday, I was just sitting with a group of Chinese at the faculty club. They're all billionaires. And then I had this Indian executives from the state. And I said, this can only happen at Berkeley. This is our open innovation approach of bringing two strengths of two great nations together, and they're having a great time saying how they can work with each other. And that's spectacular. And I just thank you so much for highlighting that conversation yesterday. Our next speaker, Munis Faruqui, he is the director of Institute of South Asia Studies. And he is the sponsor of this event on behalf of Berkeley, and we just want to come. He's a great friend of ours. Thank you so much for coming, and please come and deliver your remarks.
So, first off, I would like to thank Chief Mr. Sangma for his extremely measured, erudite, insightful comments. I was particularly struck by his suggestion that, we come together at venues like this to have conversations, to form the beginnings of what we can only hope are long-term partnerships. And I think he's absolutely correct to highlight the need for more human-to-human contacts, and especially contacts that bring both India and the United States closer to one another. So it gives me great pleasure to thank Chief Minister Sangma again. Thank you, sir. I'm also deeply honored to, be in a position where I get the last word on this stage. I get to thank our distinguished guests from India. I get to thank our Consul General. I also get to thank people like Solomon, but more importantly, I think the person who has been at the heart of the logistics and just the challenge of bringing all of you together, I think a big round of applause is due to Rekha for all her hard work. Rekha can plan for just about everything except for the fact that we have a Berkeley, Arizona football game tonight. And then there is a parking issue. So, I'm sorry for that, but please accept our apologies. I wanted to also just say that, standing over here, in some ways, I woke up this morning realizing that it had rained outside. And the first thought that went through my mind was the fact that we are welcoming guests from Delhi, we are welcoming guests from Meghalaya and San Francisco, and it seems almost as if the weather of all three places has been brought together in the past couple of days with extreme heat, rain right now, and mist in the hills. So it seems that Berkeley just truly is the perfect place to bring all these individuals together. So thank you. I promise not to take too much of your time. The only reason I'm standing here is because, as Solomon correctly pointed out, I'm the director of the Institute for South Asia Studies on campus. And it is a great honor for us to be partnering with Haas and to also congratulate Haas for setting up a new center focused on growth. We at the Institute for South Asia Studies complement the work that is happening here at Haas. And, just to give you a sense of why Berkeley and why, in some ways, this institution is the perfect place for precisely these kinds of conversations, I'm the director of an institute that has about almost 100 faculty who are working on various aspects to do with India. And this is not just faculty in the business school and law school, engineering, but also in the social sciences and humanities. And there is no other university in the United States that has so many affiliated faculty who are deeply thinking about India in particular, but also South Asia as a whole. And one of the big advantages that comes out of this is that someone like myself, I'm a historian of medieval India. I stand before you having had all sorts of conversations, not just with Solomon, but you will also hear from Ganesh Iyer and Catherine Wolfram and other folks in the Haas School, but also in some of the other professional schools. And that is the beauty, in some ways, of an institution that not only has the ability to have so many faculty, but faculty who actually also like each other and respect what we all do, despite having rather different interests. And so in some ways, today's conference makes complete sense for me. And I really honestly hope, looking forward, that Rekha and her team and Mr. Kirloskar and, everyone else who's been involved, from the India side of things, continues to think of Berkeley as a natural home for them and a place where they can have not just the 5th and 6th, but hopefully many, many more conferences moving into the future. And I also really like the idea of including our Chinese friends at some point in this conversation. But regardless, welcome to Berkeley and have a wonderful day with such amazing people. Thank you so much.